ADHD has increased 167%. So we know we're doing something wrong. Our kids are literally bombarded with chronic stress, the lack of nature, the lack of exercise, increased stress, and inability to sleep. So that's all contributing then to that it destroys the gut microbiome, and, because of all that stress. So yes, nature is super important, super, super important, because we know studies have shown that just getting outside in nature and playing can actually heal our bodies, and actually it can lower when you're not doing that, when you're not getting in nature, it actually leads to increases the risk of autoimmune diseases, asthma, food allergies. We have activation of the prefrontal cortex, like lower activation of the prefrontal cortex. So getting in nature really does help de-stress us and boost our immune system, restores our brain connections, all of that.
If you have kids out there, you know that parenting can be very difficult and a struggle at times. But supporting your child with holistic healthcare is perhaps even harder and yet even more rewarding. If you have struggled with supporting your child's health with holistic approaches, don't miss this conversation with Dr. Madiha Saeed. We're going to learn today with Dr. Saeed how to uplevel your parenting game and to help your kids get healthier in both body, mind, and spirit. I am Dr. Andrew Wong, co-founder of Capital Integrative Health. This is a podcast dedicated to transforming the consciousness around what it means to be healthy and understanding the root causes of both disease and wellness. Dr. Saeed is a family physician, also known online as the Holistic Mom MD. She is also a mother, international speaker, and best-selling author. We are excited to speak with Dr. Saeed today about a topic I know many of you are interested in, holistic health for children. I have been reading her most recent book, The Holistic RX for Kids, Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World. It is fabulous, and it's hard to put down this book because I know how much of a difference it can make for our children's health. It's going to be a game changer for you for holistic parenting, so I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome, Dr. Saeed. Thank you so much for coming on today to our podcast. We're so grateful and honored to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so, so, so incredibly honored. This is going to be so much fun. Yay!
And yes, actually, I do have your book right here. It's an amazing book. So this is called The Holistic RX for Kids, Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World. And I think that, I was thinking about this a bit before our podcast today and, meeting, connecting today, is that, we all, whether or not we have children or not, I have 2 children myself, but even for people that are, aunts and uncles and, children are the future, right? And we know
Children
that
are the future.
children are the future. And, really when we start early like that, we can really impact their lives and really the future of, the human race here in a really profound way. So this is going to be a game-changing interview, and I think just deep dive discussion, exploration about, what is it to raise kids in a holistic way. So let's kind of start with what is holistic parenting a bit, and just kind of the basics. What advice would you give to parents who are looking to care for their children with a holistic approach?
So it's powerful that there's so much that we as parents can actually do to raise mindful, resilient children, no matter what life throws at them. And then I think that's like the ultimate goal as us parents, is that we want to make sure that we give the tools to the kids and those life skills that no matter what life throws at them, they'll be able to manage it and tolerate it, right? But unfortunately, as a family physician, we were taught, okay, these are the milestones. These are what you do to keep your, child safe. But really, how to, develop a child's brain, body, behavior. We were never really taught that. And it was sort of just luck of the draw, right? That if you have a good kid, that's the luck of the draw. If you have a kid that's a little troublemaker, it's a luck of the draw. It's just who he is. There's really nothing we can do about it. And that's what I want to really emphasize, that there's so much we as parents can do to influence their biology, their DNA, their microbiome, their mitochondria, lowering the inflammation. So just like we are mind, body, soul, our children are mind, body, soul. And holistic parenting really helps to nurture a child's mind, body, soul from the inside out with the skills that they need for emotional intelligence, enduring deep friendships, making the correct decision, managing stress, and all of these things, all so they can then remain resilient all throughout adulthood. So holistic parenting is all about raising a mindful child. And right now, mindfulness is sort of like sidetracked, especially with these gadgets that are that our kids are just sucked into. We're just all living on that hamster wheel and just going day to day without really truly being mindful. So holistic parenting really helps to raise a mindful child. And we know mindfulness helps us to, see our internal and external world, clearly, showing us how best to respond and be fully aware of multiple different levels of perception all at once. So mindful about our emotions and our social lives, our environment, learning to keep it all in balance, and recognizing that what balance feels like. So just like what we do with our functional medicine patients and what we do with ourselves, recognizing what that balance feels like. And then as soon as it starts to go off balance, recognizing that, and then giving your kids those life skills that they need, digestive health, detoxification, the 4S of stress, sleep, social, spiritual health, incorporate that into their everyday daily routine. So then so as soon as their bodies start to sway a little bit and they can start to feel it, either it's agitation, or maybe there's a rash, or maybe they're frustrated, they're angry or just irritable, they're constipated, whatever it may be, they're able to reflect and not be like victimized, but just sort of reflect and be empowered to say, okay, what are my lifestyles out of balance? And what can I do to help put it back into balance? And these are just life skills, just like we teach our kids to brush their teeth, and we teach our kids to wash their hands after their bathrooms or right before they eat. Very similarly, I want to teach them how to wake up with gratitude every morning, and optimize the food that they're put in their bodies, and to recognize what's good and what isn't. I mean, the kids are learning really complicated things in school. So these are simple things that we can then teach the kids to incorporate into their daily routine. So then it becomes, sort of secondary, just like when they wake up, they brush their teeth. When they go to bed, they brush their teeth. So very similar to that, to give them these life skills. And we as parents, when we start doing that, our kids start to live more balanced lifestyles. That leads to more of a balanced brain and body, which we know we can dive into that, but it lowers the chronic inflammation and it helps their brain function better. And so they make better decisions. So these kids are actually easier to parent. So much we can do.
Yes. Thank you for that great overview. I think just reading your book, there's a couple things I wanted to highlight there. Number one, we definitely should have cooking classes in all the schools. I think, right? I mean, because it doesn't make sense that they learn all these things about like math and science, which are great, English, other languages. They're learning about politics and history.
They're really
but if they don't know how to
complicated
take
things.
care of themselves, right? I mean, we're like the only mammals that probably don't spend time on our health. We spend time on everything else, but not like, peeing and pooping and sleeping and eating, right? So
no, we don't. And our kids, and that's for some odd reason, I feel like as soon as I start bringing that up, they're like, oh no, our kid is too young for that, but they're old enough to handle everything else, but they're too young enough to, recognize what they're putting in their bodies. We need to give the kids enough credit. Absolutely. And so that's what I've started doing with my own children, as teaching them to read ingredients. They know, my 6-year-old knows what the gut microbiome is and what insulin resistance is, and all of those simple things. And these are the conversations we as parents could be having on a regular basis, and that really just empowers them into the future. So yes, there's so much we can teach the kids.
I mean, once they learn it, right? Teaching them really how to fish or harvest for themselves, essentially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I know when they go out into the world, you're not going to be there the entire time. So again, these are the life skills we need to teach them. And in my house, for example, the kids know, because from the very beginning, so my story was that I, had a lot of chronic health conditions, lupus, Hashimoto's, digestive issues. And as I was learning this approach, I started to implement it into my daily routine. And then I started to talk to the kids about it. And we started looking at ingredients and reading labels. And so I know one time I'm like, Mom, that's just a chemical. Why would I want to put that in my body? And that's so we started naming it what it was, a chemical. So these foods are chemicals. So some of the foods, like the artificial ingredients and the red number 40s and all these things, they're like, Mama, why
Yeah.
do we want to put that in our bodies? So in our house, we called chemicals, like these food-like substances, what they were, chemicals. And now, because even if I'm not there, the kids are able to read the ingredients and make those educated decisions for themselves because of the fact that whenever we found an ingredient we didn't know, we would come back and research it and say, oh my God, this leads to hyperactivity. Oh my gosh, this like these food colors are derived from petroleum. Would you want to put that in would you want to eat that? They're like, no, we don't want to put that. And so simple things. So this is why, yes, empowering our kids, teaching was when they are out into the world, they're able to make those better decisions themselves. So that's really, really important. But to recognize that currently our children's brains and bodies have really been hijacked. So that's where us as a parent will really try, because we know that these imbalanced lives that they're living are actually disconnecting the prefrontal cortex from the amygdala. Prefrontal cortex is responsible for rational decision making. It looks at the entire situation and makes your rational decision, while the amygdala is a fight and flight type of decision making. And you need both of these pieces to work appropriately to make a correct decision. So you need them both to work together to make a correct decision. But unfortunately, because our kids are living imbalanced lifestyle, and because we're not teaching them the skills like cooking and things like that, they're getting fast food, they're getting junk, they have no idea what they're putting in their bodies, they're not learning about, sleep and stress and nature and all of, and gratitude. Unfortunately, it's leading to these imbalanced lifestyles, leading to chronic inflammation. Studies have shown that chronic inflammation can then disconnect the prefrontal cortex from the amygdala. So now you have a child that is unable to use the full brain to make a logical, rational decision. And it then leads to like a limbic system driven decision making skills, which then leads to, irritability, more violent, more anger, an us versus you mentality, poorer social relationships. So yes, we as parents can actually do so much to empower our children.
Yes, a lot of sub questions I was thinking of as you were talking there. And one thing is, we know that it does come down to us as parents, us as adults, really, in a way. As I was reading this book about kids, I realized that, hey, I got to change my life, right? How are the kids going to change without someone in the adult world, whether it's the parents, whether it's the school system, whether it's the government? I don't think government's going to be the answer.
No.
Complete the government. I was actually just kind of imagining as you were talking, like, what if the government actually put on labels on food? One label would be real whole food that nourishes our bodies and brains. And then the
Yeah,
other label
seriously.
would be ultra processed chemical concoctions that will hijack your brain. They're not going to do that, right? That
They're not
would be
going to
kind
do
of a
that.
weird, I mean, that would be very effective, to be like, oh, okay, it's going to hijack my brain. Maybe I shouldn't eat that, yellow number 5 or whatever food. But people don't know that. I don't think most adults know that. So how do we get entire families, entire communities to really do this? I have a question for you on that. Do you have? I know you do a lot of communities or holistic mom, MD, etc. Um, do you find that taking a community approach where people are talking to each other, moms are talking to dads and like etc. and communities versus individually learning this stuff? Like, how do people learn this stuff so they can teach their kids?
So I do. The community approach is really powerful, but it really starts with, just like what you said, you got to start with yourself. So as I was learning this myself, again, they don't teach us this in medical school. So
No, definitely not.
they do not teach us this in medical school. They don't teach us this in residency. And I mean, in any residency, my brother is a interventional cardiologist. My sister's a pediatric ICU physician. Like, and my husband's a family physician. So I literally have every doctor in the family. We're not taught any of it in any residency. But so when we recognize that we're not taught this, and you're not going to really get it from your doctor, really searching these things out and trying to learn this yourself through all, I mean, there's so many amazing resources out there right now. But so first start learning yourself and try to start implementing it. And then just like start with your family. Our kids are they're smart enough to have these educated discussions and show them the research, show them the study, show them the science behind your reasoning, and then provide them healthier alternatives. So that's what I've done in my own household. So actually I live with a family of 8 and I cook for a family of 20 regularly. So if I can feed a family of 8 on a daily basis with me and my 4 children, my husband, and then my in-laws, so now you have multi-generational
You're
in one
multi-talented. You are
household.
so
Yes.
talented. Yes.
But if we can do that, if we can start to do that and start having these conversations and start with your own house and be like, oh my gosh, so let's find replacements for, like, let's say pasta. My kids used to love, like before I started all of this, obviously everybody like ramen noodles and things like that. And so now I'm like, okay, but look at all those ingredients in that versus now let's find out a healthier alternative. Instead of that pasta, let's use lentil pasta instead of, the fake coloring stuff that they put in. Let's just use regular spaghetti sauce,
And they get
and you
used
can
to
find,
it. Yeah. They get
and
used
they
to it
get
over time.
used to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's all about training your gut microbiome, because we know that there's a direct connection between our gut microbiome and our taste buds and our brain, all that. But it's all about retraining your gut microbiome, your brain to like those things. But I recognize that, for example, yes, the community does help. And I've actually done cooking demonstrations in the community for like 500 people, where
Nice.
I'm doing like an entire cooking demonstration. And that's where you start off with the things that people really love. And so like most people love pasta. So then what I would do is I would show them that, okay, let me recreate this pasta for you guys. And I would have the lentil pasta there already boiled and done. So that was easier, but lentil pasta. And then I would create the sauce. But in the sauce, what I would try to do is I would add like bone broth. I would add cauliflower rice. I would add broccoli sprouts. I would add, like, you can even do like a spaghetti sauce that has tons of vegetables in it. And super simple, but now you've got all these like key nutrients and sulforaphane, right? So now you've turned like the
Yeah.
regular pasta into like a super powered pasta that any kid would love. Because when you cook the cauliflower rice, like frozen cauliflower rice, and when you cook broccoli sprouts, it just sort of disintegrates and it just takes on the flavor of whatever is there. So just by doing these simple things in the community and showing them and tasting that, and then I'll do the same thing like with brownies, right? So my kids love brownies. Most people love brownies, but I'll change it. I'll make them out of almond flour or a cake, right? So I use almond flour. I use avocado oil, pasture raised eggs,
I
honey
saw that
instead of
recipe in your
sugar.
book. I'm definitely going to try that one out.
Oh my gosh, that is my
Almond flour
showstopper.
brownie.
It's so good. And then on top of that, like the cake. So super simple things. So you just want to give people the alternatives. And once you show them in the community that it is possible, then they are really apt to change. And then when they have that, develop that community and they're able to switch out recipes and try this and try that. And then we have multiple WhatsApp groups, and then I have my social media, and then we have the Facebook groups there. So all of that, yes, community is key to change that, but it really starts with you and trying to find what works for you and your family, and then finding those healthy alternatives. So then you can take that into your community and then start to build change. But that's what I did. Even when I have, because we're in like a traditional Pakistani household, my in-laws, I'm the oldest daughter-in-law, they'll all come to my house, but I cook the same way. So I've cooked for 20 some people on the weekends, especially before COVID, but I would just cook this exact same way, and just finding again those healthier alternatives to the foods that they really love.
I love it because when you're cooking for your family and everyone's eating together and connecting in community, right? Rather than
Yes.
having like 4 people or 8 people and they're all eating like 4 or 8 different meals, that doesn't really work
Mhm.
long term.
No, it doesn't. It's exhausting. And I told myself, and I told them, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do, but I'll promise to make it delicious and nutritious.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
obviously, in the Indo-Pak community, there's a lot of like breads and, and rice. Basically, that incorporates every one of their meals. So I had to sort of find alternatives that they would love, because my father-in-law was a diabetic. He had heart disease, but now he was on 30 units of insulin. Just by showing him different alternatives, he is now off of his almost all of his diabetes medication.
That, that's so
So you
amazing.
see how simple things. So when
Yeah.
and then they feel energetic and they love it. And now actually it's really cool, because again, when you got to make this fun, and if you focus on the stuff that you can't eat, you're going to make a negative association with food. But when you start focusing on all the things that your children, your families, and your in-laws and everybody can have fun with food and still enjoy it, and the color, it really creates a better relationship. And with the food, plus on top of that, they're able to really take this on into their own lives after, because right now they're like, for example, right now they're in Pakistan. It's so cute, they're actually making videos. We actually started our own Facebook page here, Holistic Urdu MD, and
Okay.
my mother-in-law took over that, literally that channel.
That's
So it's
awesome.
me and her, but
Nice.
now they're over there making videos on how we should be eating more color, and it's just so
That's so great.
awesome,
Yeah,
right?
spreading the word. Yeah, that's
Spreading the
awesome.
word, because of the fact that now there's like a positive connotation with this food. We made it fun. We're able to find healthier alternatives anywhere you go. Um, and then same with, again, my kids started their own podcast, because called the Holistic Kid Show Podcast, which we
Okay,
would be
cool.
honored to have you on there. I would be so
Yeah.
honored.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
so
Thank
we
you.
got to connect. But
Yeah,
so
sounds
where
good.
they interview the biggest names in integrative holistic functional medicine, but
Awesome.
because of the fact that there's not that negative connotation, they're like, this is fun, what are you talking about? Because anytime you bring in healthy food, you're like, oh, that's so boring. What? No, we don't want to do that. Let me celebrate today. No, but celebrations can incorporate those healthy foods. So
That's really
that's what we
great.
try to do
Make
here.
it fun, connected with the celebrations. As a whole,
Yes.
yes. And then let's go kind of pivot a little on I just want to definitely ask you about as a holistic family doc. There's really two things that I see with kids nowadays. Well, you're a holistic family doc. I'm saying I also do primary care and stuff. I guess my question is for kids. Looking at kids, we know that there's really this epidemic of what's called, quote unquote, in the conventional world, ADD, right? Attention
Mhm.
deficit disorder. And I think in a functional sense, we could look at that. We could give people meds, and all this stuff. We can do the neuropsych testing, which is, well and good in some ways. But then at the end of the day, we know that that's a label, right? We know that there's some deeper root cause things for what's causing ADD. Even though this podcast is not about ADD, I was just thinking about, that your book and Holistic Arcs for Kids, and how, some of the things that kids could be doing more of, like getting outside and playing ball and like getting into the sunlight, looking at nature, is kind of getting usurped by being indoors and being on screens and tablets and even like cell phones and things. So I have a couple of questions for you there. A, how much time should our kids be outside? What do you recommend there? And then on the corollary of that, how much time do you recommend, if there is a specific time, for screens and things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, ADHD has increased 167%.
Wow.
So we know we're doing something wrong. Our
Yeah.
kids are literally bombarded with chronic stress, the lack of nature, the lack of exercise, increased stress, and inability to sleep. So that's all contributing then to that, it destroys the gut microbiome, and, because of all that stress. So yes, nature is super important, super, super important, because we know studies have shown that just getting outside in nature and playing can actually heal our bodies, and actually it can lower, when you're not doing that, when you're not getting in nature, it actually leads to, increases the risk of autoimmune diseases, asthma, food allergies. We have activation of the prefrontal cortex, like lower activation of the prefrontal cortex. So getting in nature really does help de-stress us and boost our immune system, restores our brain connections, all of that. And even improves, science has proven that it actually does improve cognition. It helps our children focus. It improves their attention, and even increases energy. So even if they can just get out into nature at least 30 minutes a week, like, just that's really it. Is you just need 30 minutes a week in nature. to do it.
That's
Like, let's just start
everyone
there.
can do that. Everyone can do that.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
30 minutes in nature. So I try to incorporate some sort of like hike, or just get the kids even in the backyard. Just getting outside. We have like trees in our yard, just getting them there, throwing, even if it's dark. I mean, right now there's snow here in Chicago, so even going sledding or just being around, simple things, and we try to incorporate just minimum 30 minutes a week. That has had profound effect on their prefrontal cortex activation and improving their focus and lowering their stress. And then we know that there's tons of research again on screen time, and how the blue light is really affecting our children's brains and their body. So again, trying to limit it to, I mean, right now, they always tell us like the 2 hours of just some sort of screen time is like way too, and for me, I even think that's even way too much.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, so at least like, I mean, I just try to keep it to an hour for the
That's
kids.
pretty good. That's a victory right
That's
there. If you can do
it,
that,
right?
yeah.
Like, because
Yeah.
right now I know we were taught like to do 2 hours a day of screen time because they're already getting so much more at
Yeah,
school.
the Promethean boards or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so they're
Mhm.
adding getting so much at school. So for me, I just really just stick with that hour. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, that's a great. Also, we know that if we at least, not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, okay, let's try for an hour at least. Have a little bit of a stricter time. So that's really
actually,
great.
but what I recognize that it's easier to sit down with your children to make up those rules and regulations. So my
Okay.
kids know so we sit down together now that they're older. They're 14, 11, 8, and 6. So we sit down together and we're like, okay, you know what? This is the effects of screen time. What do you guys think? Like, they're like, okay, can we do a little bit longer on the weekends and then just maybe a little bit shorter here? And so that's what we try to focus on. So sit down and come up with like a plan of action with your children, because then they're more apt to following those rules.
I
And
love
then
how
then you have,
empowering that is.
yes, because again, you just want to, like, this is the research. What do you guys
hmm
think?
hmm
And and again, remember, when the kids have their own, when they're able to make those own choices, they actually cause more like prefrontal cortex activation. So they're able to be more logical. Otherwise, if we start to force it on them and these rules and regulations, nobody wants, to be dictated. Even little kids, they don't want to be dictated. So that's why coming up together. So I really try to treat them, you know, they're not adults. Obviously, their brains are not built like adults, but at least try to have those conversations with
Yeah,
them. And then
that's
that really,
amazing.
and that's what I try to do again with anything. So we
Yeah.
have our chores, with our screen time, with our nature time. And again, just like what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, is again, incorporate this. If we start to just incorporate this into their daily routine. So the kids in my house, they have the daily routine of, when they wake up, they know they do gratitude more immediately when they wake up. So as soon as they open their eyes, I've taught them to say, thank you, thank you, thank you for my eyes, thank you for my ears, thank you for my nose. And if they forget, it's okay, because it takes time. But when they come downstairs, we'll be singing our thankful song. And then we try, usually in the summertime, we'll run outside, get the produce from whatever's in the garden, and then come and go through the meal, and we're like, oh, let's make a meal out of this together. And then I have a day for, visit to get nature, have it to make sure there's a time for detoxification, making sure there's time for a meditation, making sure then there's time for sports or whatever it is to keep your body moving. So all of those, just like what we do for adults, we have our schedules. I try to do the same thing with the children.
I mean, it sounds like routines. Yeah, routines and rituals. They create a sense of safety and of I guess circadian rhythm, right, for
Absolutely,
all of our
absolutely. So they
bodies.
know, they do. So they know that, okay, this is the time. Okay, 9 o'clock, we want to start. Got to get to bed, and then we wake up at 8 o'clock, or 7 o'clock the next day. We got our 10 hours of sleep. They know the importance of. Then obviously, as a parent, you need to be flexible to do the best. But I put that in their hands, and then actually have them. Then if they go off a little bit, um, let them do it. Like, for example, if they went to sleep a little later, then they wake up a little groggy, and then I'm like, you just suffer the consequence.
Yeah, cause and
So
effect.
now,
Yep.
cause and effect, because they need to know. Or like, for example, if they ate something and they immediately felt something different, like, what do you, and then have that conversation with them. Let them be their own, let them grow, let them make mistakes, and then sit there, really have that conversation. I'm like, you didn't feel so great. You weren't able to get up and get all of your chores done before school, because we have a bunch of chores that need to be done, just like adults. We got to get all these things done before you get to school. If you don't wake up on time, how are you going to get your chores done? And then you suffer the consequences. Or they don't feel so great when they wake up because they didn't get their hours of sleep. So those are the conversations that you want to start to have with your kids, with all aspects of life.
That's great. I'm just curious. This is a kind of a side question, but are they internally motivated? Are they getting allowances? I'm just kind of if you don't mind, asking
No,
about
I don't do
that.
allowances. Nope, no
Yeah,
allowances here.
yeah.
Because for
We don't
me,
either. Yeah.
no, we don't. We never grew up with allowances.
Yeah.
My parents
Get
didn't give us
spoiled,
lunch
right?
money.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But no, so we know, my kids know that, okay, so this is sort of, it's really funny. My 8-year-old said this today, and that's when I started to tell them. They're like, let's get this over with so that we can get on with our lives. Right. So we know these things need to be done. So like, for example, the dishes need to be done, the chores need to be done.
Hmm, hmm.
So they need to be done. So actually, the kids, my 11-year-old, he makes all the lunches in the morning. My 6-year-old takes out the dishes from the dishwasher from the night before, and then my 8-year-old will put them all up. And then they'll work together to put whatever dishes are left in the dishwasher. On the days that we do the laundry, they'll do the laundry. So they have like a system where they do it themselves, but then by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, all of those are done. And I can finish, like, I'll put something in the Instapot or whatever it needs to be, or
That's awesome.
but
It looks
all
like
of
they're
the
working together as a team, though, which is great.
so that's where we work together as
Yeah,
a team. So
yeah.
then while we're doing our gratitude, our thankfulness, we're talking about our purpose for the rest of the day. And they've now accomplished so much already at like 9 o'clock. And now the rest of the day is theirs. So that's what he said, Mama, let's finish this up so the rest of the day can be ours.
Yeah.
Yes. So that they are internally motivated because they see, like, I mean, I was able to write 5 books during this pandemic,
Wow.
and with all 4 kids at home when it was in quarantine. So that's when
That's
I wrote them
incredible.
all.
That's great.
And
That's
it's
amazing.
craziness. People are like, how do you get it done? Because we work as a team, because we sat together as a family to come up with those rules, and how mama's life does not revolve around the kitchen nor
Hmm.
chores, right?
That's great.
I
Got
got
to get
things to,
that established.
so we got, exactly. So then they helped me as a team to get that done. And empathize. They're like, you wouldn't want to do this yourself, right? Why would mama want to be doing this herself?
Yeah. Well,
And
well,
get
your
stuff
book
done.
is amazing. I just wanted to highlight how really comprehensive it is. Having gone through IFM and other trainings, I'm like, wow, this book, I'm like learning all this stuff from your book. I mean, it's so detailed. I think as deep as people want to get into biochemistry, but I want to focus on the broad aspects for the listeners. Like the 4 S's in the book, I think seem really important: stress, sleep, social health, and spirituality, which we've touched on today in our conversation, which I'm really appreciative
Mhm.
of. I'd kind of love to talk about stress and sleep a bit. What do you recommend for meditation or some sort of grounding exercise for kids, for parents that are out there with kids, and then maybe the kids are a little hyperactive, or maybe they can't go to sleep for whatever reason? Even if they're going outside, they're still like, mommy or daddy, I'm ready to go to sleep, but I can't go to sleep. So I'm curious how you kind of intermingle those two aspects, stress and sleep.
Absolutely. So it all really starts with how you start your day. And that's, I know you didn't want to say that. I mean, I didn't, you didn't say about spirituality, but for us, we start our day with gratitude.
That's huge. Yeah,
That's
that's huge.
huge, because if you can start to change that subconscious from, instead of thinking negative all the time, to thinking positive, that immediately gets you off on the right side of the bed every day. And therefore, your children stress out a little bit less. And so we start our day with gratitude and positivity, and that really starts to decrease the worries that the kids are dealing with on that day.
Nice.
And so starting off with that, again, incorporating that into their daily routine, the gratitude every morning. And then in our house, obviously there's prayer and meditation. So, but finding a meditation practice that works for your kids. My kids, the breathing technique is really, really important. in the, there's great books I written like Alpha Breaths, by a Harvard psychologist about to talks about mindfulness and in kids. And so they love to use their breaths. But I even in my house, we actually do, again, because I was learning it. So we've incorporated it with our prayers, but it's even if it's like 5 minutes, that's it. Just getting them into that routine is important. So in the middle of their day, they will, I've gotten them like right before their screen time. That's what they've got to do. So to help them de-stress,
Yeah.
they will, so that, because they're obviously they want to watch screen time. So therefore they're like, I already have screen time. So
They'll
I'm like,
do
we
it.
got it.
Yeah, they'll do it.
They'll do it. They'll do it at that time. So we talk about our day, and then actually we'll do it together. After they come home from school, we'll sit down and they'll eat their food, because at that time they're ravenously hungry. So they'll eat, we'll talk about their day. And then we're like, okay, before screen time, let's go ahead and do this. 5 minutes. Let's just start with 5 minutes. And we start off with the breathing techniques. We'll do a couple of those, 2 in, then 4 out, 3 in, 6 out. And then same with the 4 and the 8.
Okay.
And then mindfulness. What are we listening? What are we hearing? What are we seeing? What are we feeling? And again, it only has to be like a minute each, right? Even just for even younger kids, for them. And then we'll go into like the mantra meditation or mantra. And they've all have their little word, and they'll just say that. And we'll just sit for just 5 minutes. So that was like 1 minute, and then 3 minutes. Really that simple. And then just have them do that at that time, and then end with gratitude. And then I'll help guide them through that. But again, I'm like, oh, we got to do this. So again, we've incorporated that into their daily routine to try to help them with that, to help them lower that stress. And then for sleep, again, same routine. One of them, and then have them develop their own routine. In my house, what we've done is there's a specific melody that they love to listen to. Actually, they started listening to that. I started making that routine for them when they were in my belly. So they actually put that on, and as soon as it says for us, it's like the scripture.
That's so smart. Yeah, you
so
started
for
in the
us, it's
womb.
like,
That's amazing.
yes, I started actually scripture in the womb.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's like a tone, but either anybody can do anything, and then they can put that up. And as soon as, I kid you not, my 14-year-old still has to put that melody on as they're falling asleep. And same with, again, and then one of them needs an Epsom salt bath before they go to bed,
Yeah.
So they all have their different routines. So as long as they set their routine themselves, they're able to then prioritize that.
That's so great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Saeed, for coming on today. We really appreciate you coming on, and definitely check out Dr. Saeed's book, The Holistic RX for Kids. It's an incredible book. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I'm sure it's like everywhere. You have your own website too. I think it's holisticmommd.com.
Yeah, so this is the book. And then also, just, I don't know if you have this, I got to send you these, but I have we started a children's book series.
Yeah, I'd love to have those. Great. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So my kids during the pandemic, so we started a children's book series, functional medicine children's book series.
That's amazing.
It's called Adam's Healing Adventures.
Oh yeah.
Adam is actually not feeling well. And then he needs to recognize that in order to feel better, he has to put the holistic prescription back into balance, rest, sleep, social.
I like how the gut's right in the middle there. That's nice.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then same with this is the one that just came out the same time the book came out. So I was literally doing 2 book launches at a time.
Great.
But this one's all about rainbow foods and how Adam wasn't feeling so good on sugar, but then recognizing that, oh my gosh, when we start eating the rainbow foods, now the rainbow is in the diet. So when we have like the gut and the social, the spiritual, the mental, emotional, and then the rainbow foods, we can feel amazing. So then right now I'm working on the one about gratitude. So that's the health series, the functional medicine children's book series that I'm working on. Awesome. Again, I'm super passionate about this. So anything, trying to get the kids on board with this.
Exactly. I feel like those books should be required reading for both schools and homeschoolers.
Yes.
That would be amazing. Yes. Are they out? Those are out yet too?
Yes, those are all out. Okay. So it's all on Amazon.
Amazon,
Everything's
right.
on Amazon. Yes.
Okay.
So thank you so much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much, Dr. Saeed, and I'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave us a review. It helps our podcast to reach more listeners. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next episodes and conversations. And thank you so much again for being with us.